This is part 3 of a 3-part podcast.
Hi, this is Mark. There are a lot of reasons to get angry these days, but I prefer to focus on the positive things that we each can do to make this world a better place. The book, Building a Better World in Your Backyard, Instead of Being Angry at Bad Guys, is a great resource for just that. Instead of throwing my arms up in frustration at governments or big corporations, there's a list of ideas that we each can tackle to affect change. Information about this book and other resources can be found at permies.com.
You know, just real quick, I have never made butter. I know how butter is made, but I also know, like, boy, it just begs for machinery. When you make your butter, how do you do it?
I have two machines, so to speak, 2 butter churns. One is manual, which I just keep there in case someday I'm going to need to use it and I don't have electricity. But I have another one that is a 2-gallon and it's electric, so you just plug it in. And then depending on what time in the lactation that cream is from, earlier churns so much, like 2 minutes, and it's separated. Later in lactation, sometimes it takes, I don't know, half an hour, but it's there on the counter. I can go do other things. I also can make it from fresh cream, and then you'll get fresh butter, or from cultured cream, and then you get cultured butter. And making a pie crust with that cultured butter is just like, the dream. Yeah. So then when you make it out of cultured cream, you get the cultured butter, and then you get the buttermilk that's already ready to be used, as in cultured buttermilk. So yeah, really cool.
That's
butter,
great.
Yeah, it's a commodity. I mean, it's a commodity. It's a treasure. It's like,
yeah.
The one thing that maybe I should say here, that because the washing of the butter is manual, so I basically use my hands in the kitchen with water, but I can't squeeze out all that way like probably the industrial machines do. So my butter doesn't keep very long. Just so that's one thing that is. But it tastes so much better, and I know that it has a different nutrition in it.
Because you can't get the same amount of pressure on it to extract enough liquid?
Yeah.
I feel like there's ways to do that manually. Is it just your particular system that can't quite achieve it?
I just use my hands.
Okay. So this is your brute strength.
Yeah.
So I don't make a lot of butter by any means, but our farmhouse, which is right here, that my great-grandparents built in 1907, you walk into the foyer and there's a butter churn and there's a butter press. Ooh. And you open up the butter press and there's a handwritten note card by my great-great-grandmother that says, "This butter churn paid the note on this house."
Wow.
And I think that's really cool. Granted, they were doing 17 different things. They were trapping and shipping snakes and prairie dogs. They were farming a little bit of wheat. They were churning butter. Yeah. They were hatching chickens in these old coal-heated incubators. They were doing so many things, but their bread and butter was butter. And it they milled cottonwood trees to build the house from right here on site. So their cost was low, but everything they needed money for, it came from butter.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, butter is a nutrition powerhouse, definitely, and that's probably one of the reasons why it's so important for a person to know what that cow ate that made that butter, because like all the other things, the bad things tend to bind themselves to the fat. So if the cow's diet was not very good, then we kind of eat that. So yeah.
Agreed.
Now, when you put up, you have cattle now, and so every once in a while you have beef, and you store the beef. Probably I'm going to guess you freeze it.
I do.
Yeah. And then chicken you freeze.
Yes.
Pork, you do pork once in a while and you freeze that.
Yeah.
Do you preserve meat in ways other than freezing?
I do not, no.
Okay. Yeah.
We have 5 freezers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't. And they're not all, I mean, it's like maybe 90% is meat in there, and then there's other things like the stuff that I grow in the garden that I like in frozen form, like green beans and whatnot, tomatoes, small plum type tomatoes and other things, corn on the cob. Or anyway, yeah. So yeah, freezer is important here, definitely.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I kind of feel like I keep pushing for everybody here to not freeze, because freezing is the easiest always. And it's like, but it also, I used to remember that it was like, it was something on the order of $10 to keep a freezer going, $10 a month to keep a freezer going, but it might be more now. I mean, that was,
yeah.
What do you think it is?
Here at my place, it's about $50 a year for each freezer, give or take. So.
Wow.
I mean, that price for the fact that I'm eating my own meat, I can't even.
The value is certainly there. But when you want to talk about like traditional preservation methods, like if we want to, I feel like we could liken it to making the switch from a McDonald's hamburger to your own home-raised beef. It's a world of difference. But then when you talk about like, we're used to preparing beef from a frozen state and in the sort of cuts and preparation and packaging methods that you pull out of the freezer. And to make that leap to like non-refrigerated preservation, it's that different again. And it's also exquisite. Like it's incredible. But I'm not going to take someone who's used to grilling out a hamburger and give them a preserved like hunk of beef and expect them to know how to be able to engage that culinarily.
I also want to say that certain meats, for certain type of meat, certain animals are more suitable for certain methods. Like you can't really do much curing or drying with beef, especially regular beef. Now, my beef is so fat, I could probably do anything I could.
I mean, you can. It's just not done as much.
Yeah.
Finish that thought before you get to this comment, Liz.
Yeah.
Like if you're trying to preserve meat, you're going to have a lot of success with pork and pig.
Pork would be,
goat,
and
lamb.
Yeah, right. But I think that beef is more for dried as in like jerky type. I'm not an expert, just I like my freezing, and not to find myself an excuse, but it's a lot of work. All this stuff that I'm doing, I really don't feel like adding another layer of work between the time when the beef is slaughtered and the time I eat it. That will be kind of a whole new art and a whole new thing. And I am not willing to do that for myself.
Well, we're the same. We'll preserve meat if we're trying to achieve a culinary special thing. But because freezing is currently cheap, I think if energy were not so cheap, that dynamic would change in a hurry.
Absolutely, and
if we were on solar,
right.
Not only is energy harder to come by and more expensive, but is it robust enough? Like, if you lost everything in your freezers once, you'd think twice before going back to freezer.
Definitely,
If you lost your freezers once a year, it becomes a non-option.
Yeah, totally, absolutely. So far we've been blessed to not have any issues. The other thing that if you don't have the freezer option, you'd be when to butcher. Like a pig would be in December if you have snow or ice because spoilage and stuff, and then you'll go from there to whatever methods of preservation, you smoking and other things. Beef, for instance, where we live here, the best time to slaughter is at the end of our grass growing season, which is May, June, because that's where they call them on the gain. So they're gaining instead of like September or October or winter when they're basically losing weight. Even though it's small, but they're losing weight, the meat is not the same. So in June, sometimes it can reach 100 degrees outside. So here you are butchering a beef in 100 degrees. So all sorts of things. There's all sorts of implications. And of course, it can be done, but there's a lot of planning, and things would be done very differently than what I'm doing right now. But for now, this is what works for me, so I'm happy with it. And with my 4 freezers.
Yeah. Thanks. Okay, so TC says, Liv, what would be the biggest hurdle you encountered keeping large farm animals? Veterinary or feeding them?
Oh, I don't know. Time, I guess. Everything takes time. In terms of money, I am probably one of those, I don't know, few people that I'm not looking to save money in this, because I'm not. But I'm looking for the nutrition that I'm getting from all the food I'm growing in all shapes and forms. That even if I'm willing to go out there and pay top dollar for what I'm growing here, I am sure I wouldn't get the same nutrition. There is no way. And the other thing is I'm striving to get to a kind of a closed loop system where I'm not importing much food for all this, but it's kind of gets recirculated, so to speak. I do buy minerals though, but before they get to me, they get, either through a cow's stomach or their beef or in a vegetable, so I don't really ingest the minerals themselves, but in this way. And so hurdles. Time is one thing that I wish I could clone myself in 5, and then I'd have a much better farm and bigger. But it's a lot of work. The veterinarian indeed got very expensive the last maybe couple of years. I'm not sure what happened out there. I'm lucky that because I've been at it for so long, I don't go to the vet as often, or I don't call the vet to come out here. In the beginning, my husband likes to laugh and says, "Oh, Maddie was coughing," and the vet came the next day. And it was true, because I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't want her to get sick or something. So, yeah, the vet was out here a lot in the beginning, but not now, because I've learned a lot, and I am more confident in my own abilities. The feed prices are indeed high. I don't grow my own hay, which kind of, it's a big expense. Other than that, the main hurdle is the time that everything takes to be done and accomplished.
I feel like there's probably about 100 hours more to say down your beef operation there, your beef and dairy operation there. But you mentioned that you have chickens on and off, and you have hogs on and off.
Yeah.
I would think that you'd want to have chickens year round, just to kind of, take in the kitchen scraps.
Well, I have layers. The hens that lay eggs.
Oh,
those
okay.
are here. Yeah, those are here. Some of them are 10 years old, poor things. I don't kill my layers. I just let them kind of live their lives. And I only do it if they get sick and I don't really want to take them to the vet. But they usually, I feel like they've given me so much during their laying years that we just keep them. And we give them treats. And a lot of things from the kitchen and all sorts of things. Yeah, chickens are good.
All right, so chickens all the time and dairy cows all the time, and that's your style. I'm going to say that if somebody has never raised a garden before, they probably would like to dabble in chickens, but not dairy. Dairy might come a little further down the road. Fair?
Absolutely. And it's not not everybody needs to have dairy. It really is hard to keep them, because even if you, let's say, you get a half breed, like a, cross between dairy and beef or something like that, and it will give you less milk, and it will be less prone to metabolic things, diseases and stuff. It's still a lot of milk, and you still need to milk it every day, milk out every day, and all those other things that come with it. So It really is a big, big commitment. I can't even describe that, just huge commitment. In order to keep that cow healthy and producing, and I mean healthy, producing, it's not like I'm striving to get 15 gallons of milk out of her every day, but they are genetically raised or genetically prone to give whatever the quantity they are giving. So you can't just turn the faucet a little bit lower because you don't want, today you don't want 5 gallons, you just want 3. It doesn't work that way. You have to milk out as much as she makes every day. You have to also do something with that milk. And because she will give this milk that she wants to give, you have to also feed her properly for that quantity of milk, whatever that means. If it's 10 gallons a day, then a lot more protein and stuff and a little bit of variety and this and that and minerals. And if it's a little bit less, then a little bit less, but proportional has to be with what she puts out in terms of milk. Anyway, so it's a lot to know, and a lot of people learn it the hard way by losing the cow, and then they start again, and who knows? Some people learn and some don't.
You're kind of touching on one thing we want to talk about in a future Smackdown is like keeping animals and being able to do other things in your life, which is like another 5-hour convo, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah, we'll do that another time.
Yeah. For dairy cows, the commitment is big, and the knowledge that you need to have. Luckily, there's help out there. There's books and there's groups of people that are very helpful, and then you learn. And also, you kind of need the space. Like if you only have a suburb, that a cow won't work there, or not even a goat, I guess, a dairy goat. So. But a few acres, it depends. You could definitely keep a cow and import all her food. That is totally doable. Maybe not the best, but doable. If you have more acres, especially of good pasture, then cow is totally, totally appropriate.
I wonder on your property, because your property isn't as cold as mine, that with some clever doing, you might be able to get by without using any hay, but that would be pretty advanced. No,
and the reason is because it's not cold, but it's very wet, and you really don't want the cows, big as they are, trampling the wet ground out there in the winter. You just don't. Yeah. No matter how much food is there out there, even if it's the luscious, which it isn't really, because in the winter it doesn't really have that much nutrition. The nutrition goes in the roots. But you don't want them out there. You have either a barn or a sacrificial area where you feed them the hay that you bought or made in the summer, but you do not want them out there, or that ground is going to be less and less usable year after year. In a drier climate, I can't speak of that. I never had cows any other place than here, but this is on the west side of the Cascades. That's one reason. It's a big, big thing. Yeah.
All right. Let's go over to Beau. And so, Beau, what's your experience or recommendation for people who are looking for animal products that are going to be raising their own animal products?
You said it. I feel like chickens are the gateway livestock. If you want to split hairs, raising worms is technically livestock. You just can't eat them. They're a great garden amendment sort of thing. Everyone gets into chickens first for a reason. You can learn fast. You can be producing food rapidly. They provide a lot of services. I think the economic aspect of chickens is worth touching on because, if you Google it, you're going to wind up spending way too much money keeping your birds because the paths that are made for you are labor intensive and expensive and don't necessarily result in a healthy system. the forums at Permies taught me how to raise chickens in a much more ecologically sensible way and a much more economically sensible way. I think, even if we were vegan, we would keep chicken, or even if we were vegetarian, we'd keep chickens for their eggs. Even if we were vegan, we'd consider keeping chickens for their services in the garden. And it's really easy to quickly see how happy your growing system becomes with animal partnership with chickens. Jack Spurko is going to say, well, I advocate ducks, and I'm not going to argue. Ducks are also a fine place to start. They're going to be messier, and they're going to have different needs. Depending on your ecosystem, you could consider ducks. He likes them because he likes to keep them under his trees. And ducks aren't going to scratch up his roots, under his trees so bad and expose the roots of his fruit trees. Some people like ducks because they'll get snails and slugs and stuff. But I say poultry, fowl in general. A lot of people get into this when they're still in an urban environment. And, maybe they can only get 5 chickens, but you can have a great 5 chicken system. Yeah. A lot of people are in a HOA where they can't have chickens at all, but they can have quail. Whether they're allowed to or not, they can have covert quail, which gives you many of the same benefits, many of the same education as raising chickens. So I'm not being exclusive to chicken, but it does seem to be the gateway for animal husbandry, in my opinion.
And there's fun.
Yeah.
Chickens are easy, and most of us make enough table scraps and leftover bits or have enough leaves and bits that fall in our yard that we can feed the chickens almost for free if we're careful about it. If you just go scrape up the leaves that fell in your yard for some mulch and then dump your chicken bucket under that, you're going to get worms and the chickens will go tear into that. And so there's easy ways to feed your chickens enough that they will feed you eggs. I think that's a really easy thing. And the stock being small, to me, makes a big difference. I had a cow, and I traded her for 6 sheep, and I was so happy. I can handle the sheep, move them around. I can pick them up and move them. They don't want to do what I want. And there was no chance. That cow was getting so big, there was nothing I could do. So Liv was really smart to make her cows be tame. I think if you're having a big animal, making sure its halter broke and super tame like a pet is going to be easier in every way. The sheep that come over and eat out of my pockets are way nicer to handle than the sheep I can't even touch.
Yeah, that's true.
I think rabbits are cool. I just started doing rabbits. I haven't harvested one yet, but I'm liking keeping them. They're very easy. They're small and they grow fast. They're quiet, so you could do it in the neighborhood if people didn't want to listen to your animals. Another fun thing is a Muscovy duck. It produces, they love to sit on their eggs. Their babies grow out really quick to being full-size harvestable ducks. They eat flies and they totally eat all your mosquitoes. You'll have no mosquitoes, and they're quiet. So if you didn't want your neighbors to be complaining about your loud ducks, Muscovies are really easy for that. So I think small animals are a great place to start.
Yeah. The number 2 for us were goats, but that was situation dependent. We got goats within a year of getting chickens at our place because of our extensive woodland, and I needed their services to kind of keep our understory in check. But they weren't crucial. I think pigs are another great second. Pigs are cool because infrastructure-wise, you can train them to a single electric wire, and they provide great services in your woodland too.
I would say make sure I was never able to keep my pigs in one strand.
Oh really?
Yeah, I had to do netting. So, but you'll learn. And if you have them and they keep coming out, you'll have to do something else. But
a lot of it depends.
Yeah, and depends, of course, on a lot of things. Most people just keep their pigs for the year. I raised a different breed that I really wanted, and those, again, slower growing, so they need to be kept for couple more than a year, 2.5 or so. Yeah. So that makes it challenging in a lot of ways. The same, wet winter and stuff. So it's different subjects, but
But if we're talking about the first ones, I think that rabbits are an interesting one, Samantha. I've never raised rabbits. They're going to provide a lot of the services that chickens are in terms of fertility. They aren't going to give you the same disturbance that chickens can if you're using them in that sort of a way.
Yeah, I think it depends on looking at your land and seeing what you have and what are the services that you want to have done. If you want somebody to prune your bushes, it's going to be more of a sheep or a rabbit or a goat. If you want somebody to dig up and turn your soil, that's a chicken. So like look and see whose work it is that you need to have done and what does your land provide anyway? Like I have a lot of browse. I would love cows, but I don't have fields and fields of grass. Mm-hmm. And if you do have beautiful fields of grass, like out at Wheaton Labs or what Liv has, I think a cow is way more fun because you've got the feed for them. But it's like what does your land have? What is your land providing already? And see what animal fits.
Do you need an edible lawnmower or an edible hedge trimmer?
Exactly. Like what's that tool you'd go out and buy? Figure out what animal does that work.
Yeah.
But most people just getting in, the smaller things are a great gateway. Great education.
I think anybody could raise a chicken just on what they're effluent from their own life, from their own kitchen.
Considering who we're trying to direct to, I like what Joel Salatin says about how he's baffled how every restaurant in existence doesn't have
chicken,
like a chicken area attached to the building that the restaurant is, because you take your scraps and put it right out to the chickens, and then you get back eggs and chicken. I think that we're trying to direct this to beginning gardeners or people that have never gardened before, and I kind of feel like they're not going to do any kind of cattle. I don't think they're going to do hogs to start.
Right.
They might do ducks, but chickens are going to be really easy. Now, granted, I want to advocate a system of chickens that's probably more than they want to do, but chickens are durable and forgiving. But the big thing is not only do they take in your kitchen scraps so very, very efficiently, but also your garden, which I think is the focus of today, your garden will benefit from having chickens in there, especially if you can do something that's a bit paddock shift-esque. So it's like you start seeing a lot of holes in your greens, it's like run the chickens in there. Whatever it is making those holes, they won't be there in a couple of days. The chickens will find those because the chickens are bug hungry. Whatever those bugs are, they're going to transform those bugs into eggs. And so I think for anybody getting started, chickens are a big win. And if you grow in excess of something, potatoes, there's a good chance you can go and trade potatoes for your butter, cheese, dairy, and other things, beef, pork, etc. But another thing rabbits, I think that's a big conversation to talk about rabbits. There's so much to be said there. But I kind of feel like for beginners, definitely chickens, maybe ducks. I think hold off on the hogs, hold off on the cattle. I don't think you want to I think you're going to have earthworms whether you try or not if you have a garden, and so you're going to be okay in that space.
Put Paul's brain on your plot. Do you have a hunk of land but don't know where to start? Do you have a world-changing permaculture idea and you need some feedback? Do you feel like the guy in overalls may inexplicably hold the keys to all your wildest permaculture and homesteading dreams? Well, you're probably wrong. But if you want to give it a go anyway, you can hire Paul for a consultation. He will be all yours for a whole entire hour. Schedule your Paulversation today at permies.com/consult. permies.com/consult.
All right, I want to wrap up about non-growies. Has anybody else got anything they want to add into this thing about stuff that's not growies? It's going to be like your animal-based foods.
I do want to give one nod to the people who don't engage in animals for whatever reason, if you don't eat them or you don't want to keep them for whatever reason, this doesn't exclude you. I love all that Helen Attow says about creating habitat to enlist the services of wildlife for your animal impact of your ecosystem. So there are very beautiful and very viable pathways that do not engage animals. I go the Sepp Holzer path that says you don't have to use chickens to do your turning and do your bug control. But if you don't, then you must do the chicken's job. And that's fine. There's other ways to do it. And just want to give a nod to those folks so they don't feel excluded.
Yeah, there's a lot of benefit to having the animals, even if they're not yours.
Yeah.
When the sparrows come through my garden and they're picking off whatever they're picking off, they're not damaging anything. They're leaving their manure and they're eating little bugs and things that are in the garden. And they're probably nicer to the garden than the chickens are. I don't want the chickens to get into my garden when it's growing. I can let the ducks in there if I had an insect problem, but the chickens are a little too troublesome. But a wild bird will come in there and take care of stuff. And it's just nice. It's just beautiful to see them.
Yeah, so we're not talking about animals as part of the caloric thing, but they are helping make our garden yield better by their partnership.
All right. The next thing I want to bring up is if you have 20 acres, I want to emphasize mark out a quarter of an acre and put 90% of your gardening thought into that quarter of an acre. Because the reason why I mention this is oftentimes people have 20 acres and they're new on the homestead and their first thought is they're going to grow food on the whole 20 acres. And I kind of want to say, no, you're not. I mean, I suppose it's possible that somebody could, but it's that is such a massive task, and it's like I think that if you limit yourself to a quarter of an acre, you're going to grow a lot of food on that quarter of an acre, and you'll be very pleased with it. And you might grow a few things outside of that quarter of an acre, sure, that's delightful. But hell, even inside that quarter of an acre, maybe you're going to only grow half of that with food. But I think a quarter of an acre is a good size for the first year of a garden. That's plenty big. What do you guys think?
It might be too big for a beginner, but yeah. Better than to start on the whole 20 acres, totally. Start small. And I don't know if this belongs in this question, but just be prepared. There will be failures. I have failures even now after 20 years of homesteading, so nobody's immune from them, but, don't let that discourage you. But definitely start small, like Paul says.
I think that if you do a quarter of an acre and you're going to commit to saying, I don't know, 85% of this is going to be just those 3 crops that I'm starting with, and the remaining 15% is everything else. And the remaining 15% is more for funsies, novelty, stuff like that. But the primary section of it, the biggest part, is for the 3 things that are going to be your first 3 things in your first big garden, your staples. Then I think you're going to have amazing success. Now, and your 15% that's left, that's got your novelty and your other little bits and bobs, yeah, you'll have some failures in there. But I think for your big 3, I think you're gonna pull those 3 off this first year in a big way. It'll be great because you've put your focus into those. You've learned how to do those well. But if you try to learn how to do 40 things well all at once, it'll be overwhelming.
I just want to throw out there that if you have never done anything, if you've got a super brown thumb and you kill houseplants and you try these 3 this year and you do fail, your second year is going to be 10 to 100 times more successful because you will have learned 10,000 tiny things. It's okay if they don't all take off. It's a whole new thing, and I don't know. I would like to encourage people to commit to planting stuff year 2, regardless of how year 1 goes. And I think it's important to acknowledge that, like, you're gardening new skills in yourself more than you're growing food for this year. And that will yield, huge harvests in the years to come.
I think another thing along these lines is something that we encourage here is to have a primary, secondary, and tertiary garden. And so the primary garden gets all of your first attention. So if you're going to go out twice a week and putter in the garden, always start with the primary garden. Feel free to ignore the secondary and tertiary gardens. And then if you've got some extra cycles and you wanna, and you're keyed up and you're excited, then sure, now go spend some more time in your secondary and tertiary gardens. I don't know if you guys ever do anything like this. You got your space that's getting, your garden that's getting like a good 50 to 70% of your attention. And then there's another patch that's farther away that gets some of your attention, but not nearly as much. And another patch that's even farther away, and it'll get whatever's left. I see Beau nodding.
Yeah.
I like to have things close to me as possible. I think a lot of learning about the garden is with observation. So the more I can look at it, if I can look at it out the window, I just sit there and stare at it. Or every time I go outside, every time I leave the house, it's right there. Then I think that sets me up for success. If it's far away, there's a lot of bad things that can happen. The animals can get into it, or the fence can come down and I didn't notice, or all kinds of things can happen if you have to travel to your garden. And so if it's right there and it's just a tiny spot around your house, right out your front door, I think that you have a lot better chance of success.
Yeah.
And then you can build on that. If you're super happy.
That's permaculture zone 1, zone 2, zone 3 thing.
Exactly. That's kind of what that's for, is what are you going to see every single day? And that's where you're going to have the most success. And you can build on that. And next year you had so much fun, you can make it bigger. But I think if you're going to be successful, it's going to start small and it's going to start really close to where you are.
Yeah. And this is going to look different if you're in a more urban or concentrated environment where you can't expand versus in a rural setting where you're virtually unlimited, in how much space you can take up. But and it goes back to our earliest conversation about what our big 3 would be. And Paul's thrown a lot of perennials out there, and there's, people usually focus on annuals, but and, for our system, our zones are continually evolving, where our zone 1, in a sense, is slowly getting larger as we sort of become more integrated into our place. But we'll plant perennials in, but then we'll do a bunch of annuals around them. And eventually those perennials will have matured to the point where there's not as much room for intensive gardening around it. And a lot of our gardening that starts out with annuals will slowly move into perennials that will have to touch less. So it's not static or linear. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's worth mentioning the integration between your different time frames for different plants and their different time that it takes to yield a harvest.
Yeah, if you plan to stay in your home for a long time, then you can really look at it as a year-by-year situation. This first year, the garden is going to be built up to a certain level, and next year it can be bigger. Once you're better at it and you're learned how to garden without it taking so much time. And then, somebody who's starting in a small plot around their house might have a similar situation to somebody who's on 20 acres in the beginning, because they're just going to work a little bit of land right around the house.
Yeah.
And as they expand, they can expand. But I think that's a great way to look at it is, from year to year, knowing that you're going to continue. It's not just this once. We're building something for the future.
It also depends on the topography of the whole place. Like, I live in this old cabin house that has very big mature trees around it. I can't do anything around the house. On one side is the driveway and on the other side is the trees, but I have natural air conditioning, so I am not cutting down those trees for nothing in the world. Hopefully they'll stay up there, don't fall by themselves. So my garden is at least, 100 feet or more from my house, but that's just how it is. You live with what you have and do the best with it. I would love to have something around the house, but that's just not possible here. So, but I do my exercise, put my steps in every day in the summer. So yeah, there's that.
All right. Are we at the finish line? Has anybody got anything else they want to add to this?
We could talk about storing of the food.
Arthur wanted to talk about root cellars, so let's hit storage in general for a minute. Yeah.
We talked about freezers earlier, and like, what do you do when you have all your meat in the freezer and you might lose power? One of the things that we do is we have bags of salt. And so if it came to that and the freezers, we didn't have power and the freezers were getting too warm, I can pull everything and salt it down. So I don't have to worry about losing my meat, which it's pretty valuable, all of that meat. And I don't have to worry about that because I have the salt. So, and I love to make prosciutto and I love to salt meat, but usually for ease and quickness, I'm just throwing it in the freezer.
Right.
So that's kind of a backup plan of not having to worry quite so much about the power if you've got lots and lots of salt on hand.
What if you wanted to rank crops in terms of like least effort for best storage? I mean, sunchokes are going to be great. You can leave them in the ground, harvest them when you want them. So that would be like the pinnacle of do nothing preservation of a harvest. I know that there's ways to kind of do that with potatoes in some climates and some other root vegetables. There's ways to store certain varieties of apples that are more forgiving, not nearly as much as those things. I think it's worth noting that like meat animals is like stored calories on the hoof. Like a living animal requires it requires a lot. But in terms of like preserving the meat, it's just like waiting for you to come get it when you need it.
Yeah.
What else is on your list of easiest stuff to preserve for the cold months?
I think eggs are easy. Just throw them in the water glass bucket and make sure that doesn't freeze.
For anyone who doesn't know, would you describe what water glassing is, Samantha?
When I go out to get eggs, any egg that is perfectly clean, I put it in a solution of hydrated lime. And it's a bucket with the hydrated lime. It's pickling lime. You can also buy it in a huge bag for making, I don't know if they make concrete or something they do with it, but it's just this white powder. But you can buy it as pickling lime, and it's white powder in water. And you just stir it up. I think it's like 8 ounces of it per gallon or something. You can't really have too much. What you're doing is you're creating a heavily calcium-rich water. So there's no reaction for that egg, that shell of the egg to make with the water. And so nothing goes through that shell. So you don't dehydrate the egg. Nothing changes. And that egg will be shelf stable. I mean, I've kept them for over a year and nothing weird happens to them. The only time I have
almost like a fresh egg.
They are just like a fresh egg. You take it out of the bucket and you wash it and it's a fresh egg. So to do it though, you can't wash the egg and there can't be any poop on the egg. So
it's going to have natural bloom of the egg.
It's going to be completely perfect.
It is when it comes out of the hen.
Exactly. So when I go to the nest boxes, I take all of them that are perfect and put them in the water glass solution. And all the ones that have a little bit of a smuts on them, or maybe my hand was wet or dirty or anything wrong with it, that's what we eat for, our regular eating.
I do want to say get pickling lime. Don't get lime from the hardware store.
Okay.
Just, we'll leave it at that.
It's probably nicer. Yeah.
They're different.
You don't need much. It's not like it's expensive, so you might as well get the best stuff you can get.
Yeah. What else is easy, great storage?
I think potatoes and carrots are about the easiest thing in the world. Is pull them out of the ground, tap them off a little, but leave most of the dirt on there, and pack them in dirt. make sure that dirt doesn't freeze. You can use a barrel that's buried in the ground. If you don't have a root cellar, you can just use big tubs that are kept in a place that doesn't freeze.
Mm-hmm.
Can't be too warm, root cellar temperature, earth temperature, but just packed in their own dirt. Mm-hmm. They last great, and they're just like they were.
And for me, if we're going to go one step more labor intensive, but we don't want to use refrigeration because of the energy, and we don't want to use canning because of the energy and the whatever. Canning's great, but I really like fermenting. So a lot of things that, a cabbage doesn't still store very well as a cabbage, but the kimchi just gets better and better and better. So if you can develop a taste, if you don't have it already for fermentation, I would consider that. Tomatoes become excellent ketchup and ketchup's a form of chutney, and you can make those sort of sauces with so many different kinds of your harvest. Fermenting can't be overlooked as a really easy way to preserve stuff.
I think fermenting, the salt preservation, the lacto ferment pickles are a really great way. And if you need it to last longer, you can just add more spices and add more salt, and it will really, really last for years. It tastes pretty spicy, but you can thin it down so it's not so bad. And that's a great way to keep your stuff, as long as you are going to keep it cool and keep it from freezing. So the salt. And then you get the salts and all of those extra vitamins that you get when you ferment your food. Drying is great. Drying is a great way to do it if you can do it with a solar food dehydrator or in the sunshine if you have enough sun. If you get it dry and keep it dry, the food will last a long time and holds a lot of nutrients.
Mm-hmm. So those are all before you jump straight to root cellars, we got to touch all the ways you don't need a root cellar to do. But, we can't really get into root cellars in depth because there's just so many different facets that are required to make a root cellar successful. You can't just expect a hole in the ground under your floor to work for a lot of reasons that we're not going to get into. Right, Paul?
I would love to have a root cellar, but I don't. I just have barrels, just 55-gallon drums that are just buried and flush with the earth and covered with plywood. Totally fine.
I want to throw out an idea of something that's really weird. And it's because when we're going to talk about food preservation and what's the easiest and simplest thing, there is a weird path, at least for me. I don't know if it's for anybody else. But I believe that some of the most pleasant memories from all of my life that I look back to as the things that are the substance that make me who I am, the things that are like the happy moments, are about canning, just hot water bath canning. I remember making raspberry jam with my Aunt Nan. I remember making hundreds of jars of applesauce. In fact, do I have it here? Yeah, there it is. So I would do it on these propane things, and I've got this wooden paddle that I use to stir the applesauce as I'm, cooking it to be able to can it.
Looks like an attitude adjuster, Paul.
That's a lot of applesauce.
Well, I would do it in these giant pots, but when you've got a few hundred pounds of apples, that's one thing you can do is make applesauce. And some apples will keep fine. But okay, the point I'm trying to make is I'm trying to say that, okay, the question was something like, what's the easiest thing? And it's this is not the easiest thing, but it's I guess I'm trying to say it is such a delightful thing, such a thing that's so enjoyable, such a soul-building thing. Maybe if you squint one eye and stand on your left leg and do the hokey pokey, it looks it looks easier than it is. It does. when you do 400 jars of rhubarb jam in one day, that is a long day. And at the end of the day, you're like, oh, what kind of idiot am I? But at the same time, once you have 400 jars of rhubarb jam, I mean, there is a powerful sense of accomplishment, and you did it with a whole bunch of people, and now you've got Christmas gifts and birthday gifts for the next 3 years, and not to mention, some very yummy jam. I just remember not only making the jam, but how pleased people were to get the gift of the jam. But there's so many other things that are so easy. Like hot water bath canning is so incredibly easy.
And so fast. Inexpensive to get into. And
then the shelf life is like, I don't know, 5, 10, 15 years, something like that.
Yep.
I mean, we're still opening up some peach jam that we made 5 years ago, I think.
So fun.
And it is fantastic peach jam.
Yeah.
So,
that's a great one for tomatoes too. Like we've taken ourselves off of all tomato products, and we used to eat a lot of marinara sauce and ketchup and all that stuff, and we don't anymore. It's all homemade because tomatoes are abundant in the summer and canning is easy and fun.
Yeah.
So that's been really a fun one for us.
I gotta say that, when it comes to tomatoes, I no longer grow beefsteaks ever. I grow cherry tomatoes and I grow paste tomatoes. And the reason is because I've made ketchup with beefsteak tomatoes, and I will never do that again.
Yeah.
It takes 12 hours to make ketchup from beefsteak tomatoes. And you end up with like 3 pints. It's like the amount of work versus reward is stupefying. It's dumb. And so beefsteak tomato or paste tomatoes, also known as Roma tomatoes, that's the way to go. Although I gotta say that there's some cherry tomatoes that are, and that's everything too, is if it's your first time ever growing tomatoes, grow cherry tomatoes. Because there's things that can go sideways with other tomatoes when you're a beginner. And so you'll have much better success with cherry tomatoes. Probably not going to do a lot of food preservation with cherry tomatoes, but you could. There's things you can do, and it's going to be kind of a pain in the ass, but you'll have tomatoes. All right.
We just dry the cherry tomatoes on the vine, or I pack them in olive oil, and that is the quickest way you just go through tons of them and cherry tomatoes to me are so easy because they produce really fast, make a lot of them. They're candy when they're fresh, and then you can dry them easy, just leaving them there in the sun, and they become more candied tomatoes.
I think a lot of people think of the tomato as that's going to be their big garden plant, but it's like, I think you'll notice that when we all mentioned our 3 things, I don't think anybody said tomato, but I think for beginners, a lot of beginners, that's the one thing that they want in their very first garden is tomato. And I kind of feel like, great, grow 1, and it's not part of your 3. It's over there in the novelty area. What's that?
It's a freebie.
Sure.
You just get those plants.
If you compare a tomato that you grew to a tomato from the store, it's like that's I think one of the reasons why people grow their own is because you can't buy that level of flavor.
It's true.
You just can't, even from a farmer's market, I can't buy something that's as good as what I can grow.
But if you're trying to move the needle on feeding your family, you don't want it to be one of your 3 major crops.
No, but if you're trying to get
to throw in the mix with the other things.
I think if you're trying to get your kids and your family out there to be interested in the garden, and you can say, can you go grab me some tomatoes? They can do that.
And if we're talking about gateways, we can't replace pizza, and we can't, but We can make some killer homemade pizza if you pick up some crust or make some crust and you've grown most of your veggies and toppings. And that's a great gateway because it really makes a difference and it's just delightful. Even, I don't care what pizza you like eating. You can make a killer pizza that's going to make you really happy with stuff that you grew at home.
For sure.
Do we have any more questions from the chatty chat that we want to address, or are we ready to wrap it up here?
We've covered most of them as we've gone along. You guys jump into the chat if we're missing anything. Almost over.
I think let's call it good for now. If you like this sort of thing, come on out to the forums at permies.com, where we talk about gardening, homesteading, and permaculture all the time.
All the time.
In a world on the brink of social collapse, one website stands above the rest to fight back the zombie horde of corporate trolls. Permies.com. Take back control of your destiny and protect your loved ones from the toxic git coming at you from all directions. Strap on your overalls and start building that bunker of abundance with the good vibes and friendly, helpful insight found at Permies.com.